So detail how the Russian Revolution impacted World War One. Why was the Russian Revolution significant? And what impact did the Revolution cause in the United States? There we go. Just give you some time, work on that. All right, so let's go over this real quick. So the Russian Revolution, why was it important? Why was it significant? So we just got done talking about World War One and how Germany was in what? What were they fighting? Were they fighting just on the Western Front against France and Great Britain? Noah, were they just fighting against France and Great Britain? No, who else were they fighting against on the Eastern Front? Russia. Good job. Good job. So with this Russian Revolution, what caused it? What was the problem? What caused it? Or were the people upset? Was there a lot of nationalism in Russia? No? Yeah, okay. So someone didn't want to be in a war in general, right? Okay, just what about just the nationalism in Russia at the time? So in the early 1900s, moving up into World War One, was Russia industrialized? Were they modernized? Cassidy? No, they weren't. And did they lose a war to someone? Who? Yeah, Japan, good job. So they lost in the Russo-Japanese War. They lost to an inferior country, right? So their nationalism wasn't really high at all. Okay, they're viewed almost as like a laughing stock to the rest of the world. As these other countries in Europe and even the United States were industrializing, they're modernizing. Russia, not so much. Okay, they didn't really have any infrastructure, roads, bridges, railroads, no way of connecting these agricultural areas to the cities. So there's a lot of what? Starvation, famine. And who was in charge? Who was the king, the czar of Russia? What was his name? Do you remember? It was on the vocab terms yesterday. Tanner?
Tsar Nicholas.
Yeah, Tsar Nicholas II. Good job. Good job. And did he do anything to try to help benefit the people of Russia? No, not really. Not really. And under his rule, again, there's many cases of millions of people dying of lack of food, resources. And even in these places where there were industrialization, he wasn't trying to protect the people at all, right? In many cases, Russia was failing under his rule. So with Tsar Nicholas II, what did he try to do with World War One to try to boost morale of the people and try to spur more nationalism? What did he do? What did he do? Go ahead, Tanner.
He went to the front line.
Yeah, he went in the front lines, right? He thought, well, the best way to try to boost the morale of the people, to try to get Russia more modernized, is join the sides of who? Who they join the sides of? We talked about this a lot already. I kind of mentioned it. Who they join? Did they join Germany's side? No, no. They joined the Triple Entente, right, with France and Great Britain. They thought if they could defeat Germany, well, they could stretch their land even more into Central Europe and maybe accept more of these new industrial modernized ideas. Okay. But did that work out for Tsar Nicholas II? Joining the war, Kale, did that work for him? No, not at all. Okay. And there's a lot more issues, obviously, as Russia's getting involved in a war that they know that they probably can't win. The only thing that's benefiting them is that Germany was split, right? They had a two-front war going on. So again, Germany couldn't just send all their troops to defeat Russia pretty quick. All right, so what happened then? So what happened with Tsar Nicholas II? What happened to him? Go ahead, Eddie.
He was then ruled out by.
Yeah, good job. Good job. So Vladimir Lenin, we talked about him. He was actually in jail and pretty much in Germany, right, in Central Europe, because he was trying to spark these new revolutionary ideas of communism, okay, trying to create a communist state. And Germany thought the best way to try to push Russia out of this war is release this revolutionary, Vladimir Lenin, into Russia. And maybe he'll spur a revolution, a communist uprising, and overthrow the czar's weak rule and leadership. And that's exactly what happened. Russia drops out of the war in what year? What year did they drop out, Tanner?
1917.
Yeah, 1917. Good job. Good job. So why is that impacting World War One? Go ahead, Cassidy.
So when Russia dropped out, the Western part, so communism was
Yeah, good job. Good job. So with Russia leaving the war, this really allowed Germany to focus all their attention on the Western Front, Great Britain and France. And luckily in 1917, Cassidy, who joined the war on the Western Front? The United States. Thank the Lord, right? If not, who knows what could have happened? Germany probably would have defeated France and Great Britain. And Russia is in total chaos at this point. So Lenin, and what was his party name? What was his party name? Do you remember? Remember I said it was almost like a curse word. Oh, stubbed my toe. What is it, Barbara? Bolshevik. Oh, yeah, good job. So the Bolsheviks, they lead this uprising, and in all reality, there was a provisional government that was established after the Tsar. But again, the Bolsheviks kind of take charge, and they utilize their power to try to push out any type of political opposition. Anybody that viewed against their terms or their ideology was pushed out, exiled, killed in many cases. And this is the creation of the first communist state. Okay. So we'll talk about how Russia is going to affect, obviously come in contact here with the United States coming into World War II. We will join the same sides as them, but eventually we will have odds with them moving into the Cold War. Okay, we'll talk about how Korea is going to get involved with almost like a proxy war. Same with Vietnam, with the Soviet Union moving forward. But how does this affect the United States? How does the Russian Revolution cause this hysteria, paranoia, this fear that spread across the US? How does this affect the United States? This is across the Atlantic Ocean. Why are we worried about this? Gabe, what do you think? Why are we worried about this Russian Revolution? What was the fear in the United States about? What's that? Okay, all right. So it wouldn't be like a ground war, right? It won't be like they're coming over across the Atlantic and try to take us over. What? No. Tanner?
So, there's two reasons. One is being that since such a strong country got taken over just like that,
Yeah.
it could stir up revolutions in the U.S.
Yeah, good job.
And then with communism being the opposite of capitalism.
Yeah, good job. So these ideologies totally disagree with one another. The communism is going against really the fundamentals of the United States and these democratic countries. So if this spreads to the United States, the US could break from the inside out, right? If many people are gaining this type of following, who knows what could happen? A revolution like what happened in Russia could happen in the United States if we don't become too particular on these types of people and these assemblies. So the espionage, the sedition acts were still intact after World War I, moving up to the end of President Wilson's presidency, just because this fear and paranoia of communism spreading across the United States. And who knows what could have happened, right? And what was that term called with this fear of communism spreading across the US? What was that called? Gail? The Red Scare. Yep, good job. Good job. So we'll talk about that more next chapter and leading into World War II. Good, good. Yeah, good point, Tanner. So with communism taking down Russia, let's face it, how are these countries like Germany, like France, like Great Britain, are they impacted at the end of World War One? Yeah, right. They just went through a huge, costly war, one the world's never seen before. And maybe these new ideologies might spread to these other countries. Okay, might pushing for dictatorships to occur, which ultimately does happen, right? At the end of World War One. All right, any questions? You guys good with the Russian Revolution? I know there's a lot there, but it's important to know, especially when we're getting towards the end of World War One and moving into World War II and how this Red Scare is going to be spreading across the world. Okay, terms for today. We got I don't know how far I'll get, but I'll just give you all the terms, and this is going to end everything for this chapter. Does that work? All right, we got the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, Wilson's 14 points, League of Nations, David Lloyd George, George Clemenceau, Treaty of Versailles, and reparations. And that's it. That's the end of World War One. Like I said, I might be talking a little bit more about it tomorrow. I probably will, with the Treaty of Versailles and how that's going to shape really the end of World War One, moving to World War II, and how many people say the conflict really never ended between World War One and World War II. It was just this long, big war and just a short break in between. And the reason for it was because of the Treaty of Versailles. So we'll talk about that again. If I don't get to it today, I'll definitely mention it more tomorrow. All right, there we go.
Mr. Bowman, can you look that up?
Yeah, I can try.
Just George who?
George Clemenceau. I can't really go too far or I'll cut the one off. Does everybody have the Treaty of Brest-Litovsky? Yeah, okay, I'll scroll down then and make it bigger. Is that better? Cool. Give you guys a couple more minutes and we'll move on.
Teach me.
I didn't want
Don't
to.
take it easy on my shoulder. Now I can hardly look
Oh,
away.
who's all over there?
And who did I get stuck? This is one of them gone.
Uh-huh.
And this guy. Oh my God.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm not even to bell.
I really messed you up there, huh?
Yeah.
Oh.
But I guess she's coming back.
Hoover.
Over
Oh, really?
And Heather.
Oh, okay.
Heather's shoulder sore out.
Oh, okay.
And she couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So she's gonna come back and do you too.
Oh, that'd be
I
nice.
don't know when, but she said
Yeah.
she's gonna make them since she's only had the first half.
I gotcha.
She's gonna make arrangements to come back.
Okay. Perfect.
Maybe like a half day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know what. She didn't say when. She's gonna.
Uh-huh. That'd be good. Yeah, that'd be real good. Because we just need that one guy.
I know, and it's a feeling to waste 5 hours.
Yeah, I know. Hopefully she's like for us.
Like last night.
Yeah, I guess. You guys are out pretty quick. All right, let's go over this, guys. Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. What does that mean? What was going on there? So we just review this, go over the end of the war. Okay, I'll save the treaty for tomorrow. Save the 14 points, League of Nations. Okay, the Spanish flu. Uh-oh, look out. And we'll talk about that more tomorrow and Friday. So let's go over these terms here and we'll finish up. So Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, what is that? Go ahead, Cassidy. Yeah, good job. So we just got done talking about really this communist uprising in Russia. And we really need to know how Russia leaves the war. Well, when they're leaving the war, they sign a treaty with Germany, the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. Okay. So if you hear that, that's just that term, that treaty, that agreement that Russia's leaving the war. And they're actually going to give up land to Austria, Hungary, and Germany. And this is actually going to lead to many of the causes of World War II. Okay. And how Russia, the Soviet Union, is going to look to try to claim these lands back. And at the same time, Germany, at the end of the war, they're going to face a lot of reparations. And one of them is losing some of their border lands. And this is going to increase tensions with Germany and Russia, moving to try to take these lands back. Okay, so this treaty actually was the way for Russia to leave the war and giving up these lands right here called like where the Ukraine's located. All right, moving up into Poland. Okay, and a lot of these Eastern European countries. Even today, Russia is still looking to try to get these countries back. I'm sure you hear in the news quite often how Vladimir Putin, okay, how he's looking to try to claim some of these countries back, even from really the end of World War I and World War II. It's amazing after all this time. But again, this treaty, just because the Bolsheviks, Russia needed to get out of the war to solve some of their problems internally, they signed this treaty with Germany. Okay, and that really gives the right for Germany to claim some of these lands and for these countries to form their own independent countries. All right, does that make sense, guys? So in a way, Germany's really gaining the upper hand here, but that's going to come to a quick end when World War I ends. All right, Wilson's 14 points. What do we have? What do we got? And this leads right into the next term, League of Nations. Gail, go ahead. Yeah, good job. Good job. So President Woodrow Wilson of the United States, he's going to be the one that kind of disputes the issues of these European countries, right, to try to solve peace and to make sure that the war ends. Okay. And many people say that with Woodrow Wilson's encounter, he had a lot of great ideas to try to end this war peacefully and prevent another future war from happening. But things didn't get followed through. And we all know there's going to be a World War II, right? Yeah. So again, this 14 points was established to try to bring peace amongst these European countries. And the last point, the 14th point, was the League of Nations. And what do we have for the League of Nations? Gabe, what do you have?
League of Nations is the first worldwide intergovernmental organization.
Yeah, good job. Good job. So this is the first organization where all these countries, really diplomats, different types of officials from these countries would come together to try to talk and dispute about issues before another war would rage on. Right? It makes sense, right? That you'll have a representative from each country to talk about the concerns, talk about maybe conflicts that are arising within the country to solve it with these other European countries before another war would rage on. Right? It's a great idea, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. And this is the predecessor to what we know as the United Nations today. And it works pretty good. Yeah, it works pretty good. But there's one thing here. So Woodrow Wilson came up with the 14 points. The last point is the League of Nations. But guess what country did not join the League of Nations? Tanner?
The U.S.
The United States. Yeah. So if the United States isn't joining, and everybody in the world, we'll talk about it here soon, is relying on the US for building back after World War One. Well, if that main piece is missing, how is there going to be peace, right? How is there going to be any type of agreement amongst all these countries? There won't. There won't. So you're leaving it in the hands of these countries that really all hate each other, right? All these countries that really have a lot of conflict with one another. There's no mediator. So one reason was because the United States is across the Atlantic Ocean, we want to stay isolated. There's no reason to get involved in these European conflicts, right? Especially after World War One. All right, David Lloyd George, what do you have? So these are two members of the Big Four. We'll talk about the Big Four tomorrow with the Treaty of Versailles. Who's David Lloyd George? What do we got here? Tanner, what do you have?
He was the British Chancellor for Britain after World War One.
Yeah, good job. Good job. So he is the chancellor, like the prime minister of Great Britain, and he was trying to solve disputes for the better of Great Britain after World War One. And he goes hand in hand here with George Clemenceau. Who's that, Eddie? George Clemenceau.
He was also Prime Minister in 1971. Inspired the French people to stop the Philippines for the World War.
Okay, good. So he was really the prime minister of France. Okay. So these two men are going to shape the war moving forward. Okay. Well, shape the end of the war and moving into World War II. Okay. They're going to place a lot of blame, a lot of reparations on Germany. Okay. To a point where Germany's probably going to seek revenge on this, right? These two men are going to try to make sure that they bury Germany so they don't rise to power again. You remember building up to World War One? That was one of the biggest issues. Germany was becoming such a dominant military threat. And who did it threaten? Well, France and Great Britain. So to try to make sure Germany doesn't rise to power again, these two men are going to try to place many reparations on the country. Does that make sense, guys? Okay. Treaty of Versailles. What do we have? We're going to talk about this tomorrow. Tanner?
A treaty made to end the war severely punished Germany.
Yeah, good job. The Treaty of Versailles was to end World War One, to punish Germany, to take away some of their lands, take away some of their territories, right? Strip them of their military. In all reality, that's stripping them of their what? Their nationalism, their national pride. And at the same time, they were limited to who they could really communicate with, who they could trade with. So they were really clipping the wings of Germany. They don't want to see Germany rise to power again. And when you're looking at World War II, one of the main causes to the Second World War is the Treaty of Versailles. Okay. Just because all the blame is going on to Germany. All right, finally, last one here, reparations. What do we got? Kara, what do you have for reparations?
Payments due to debt after
Yeah, good job. So with the Treaty of Versailles, Germany had to pay a huge sum of money to the Allied powers to try to rebuild. And because Germany's being blamed for the war, well, somebody's going to have to pay up to try to rebuild France and Great Britain. And we'll talk about the Dawes Plan here soon, moving up into World War II, how the United States is going to aid Germany in helping rebuild France and Great Britain to pay back the debts from the end of World War One. Guess how long it took Germany to pay back these debts from World War One? So it was established in 1918. Guess how long it took? So there was a brief period where they stopped paying back some of these reparations. But does anybody know, Tanner?
Wasn't it towards the end of the 90s
A little bit later,
or early 2000s?
2010. How crazy is that? It's not that long ago, isn't it? Yeah. So from 1918 all the way to 2010, they're still paying back the damages, the war debt from World War One. Amazing, isn't it? Yeah, when Hitler was in charge, they didn't pay anything. But Again, that's a long time. All right, is there any questions, guys? Again, I'm gonna focus on the Treaty of Versailles tomorrow. Okay, I'm not gonna skip over that. Trust me, that's important to know, moving up into World War II. All right, that's all I got for today. Just want to introduce it to you. So yeah.